Good evening, I'm Katerina Georgieva. This is CBC Windsor News. Thanks for joining us. We begin with the emotional testimony from a woman who says she was sexually assaulted by a Windsor police officer while the two worked together. The CBC's Jason Vio has more from day one of the trial.
Staff Sergeant Ken Price is facing 4 counts of sexual assault. Now, the complainant and Price worked together when the alleged assaults took place between 2011 and 2015. There's also a publication ban in place to protect the complainant's identity. Now, during day one of the trial here in Windsor on Monday, she testified that it started when Price would make sexual comments to her at work. The complainant says in 2012 is when things began to get physical. In one instance that year, she said Price allegedly came from behind her at work, pressed his nose and crotch against the backside of her body, and made a comment about how good she smelled. In a separate incident that same year, she testified that Price allegedly pushed her down on a couch, pinned her down, and started dry humping her. In both instances, she said there were officers who witnessed the alleged assaults. None of these allegations have been proven in court, and Price's lawyer has previously told CBC that his client absolutely denies any wrongdoing here. Now, this trial is set to resume tomorrow and carry into next week. Jason Vio, CBC News, Windsor.
In other local news, could a new purchase by the city be the answer to cleaning up the core? Dawson Chen has more on why leaders say it'll make a difference.
It's the latest investment that the city says will strengthen downtown Windsor, a $30,000 vacuum cleaner. The Glutton Collect is a battery-powered litter sucker meant to be used in urban environments for spots that street-sweeping vehicles can't reach. Ward 3 Councillor Ronaldo Agostino says it's more than just a vacuum.
This isn't just a new piece of equipment, it's a symbol, a sign of the kind of forward-thinking technology that fits perfectly with our Strengthen the Core plan. It's a symbol of our commitment to a cleaner, greener, and more vibrant downtown.
Glutton, the company that manufactures the vacuums, has roots in Belgium. The all-electric device can be used continuously for about 10 hours before it needs recharging. Its wheels are motorized so that it can be operated by one person, and it's narrow enough to fit through a standard doorway. According to the company, the vacuum cleaner works best collecting paper waste, pieces of plastic, glass, or metal, dog doo-doo, dead leaves, and rubbish in general. Jim Leather, the city's manager of environmental services, says that if this device proves useful for the downtown, the city could invest in more of them for other parts of Windsor.
I want to make a big point that while this is for the core, we're going to run it this year as a pilot project. We're very hopeful to expand this piece of equipment and maybe future pieces of equipment that are similar to it into all of the BIAs in the Windsor area.
And for those who doubt how much of a difference one vacuum cleaner will make on the downtown core's problems, Agostino has some words.
Well, I think when you see a clean downtown, that makes a difference. And for some reason, anytime we spend a penny downtown, it gets criticized and put through the ringer, and that's just not cool. That doesn't work with me, right? Downtown deserves to have nice things too.
The city of Windsor is the only municipality in the region to have this equipment so far. Dawson Chen, CBC News, Windsor.
Independence Day was last week, but we wanted to take you back for a moment because the city of Detroit always lights up on the 4th of July, and this year was no exception. So this here is what we caught on our tower cam following sundown on Friday. Fireworks were seen blazing across the skyline, not as formal as the Florida fireworks, but still a show worth watching. Colette Kennedy joins us now for our first look at weather. Colette, a bit of relief today after a very intensely warm weekend.
Yeah, for sure. What a departure from yesterday when it was 34 degrees and a humidex of 40. Today, essentially the high about 10 degrees cooler, and that's where we sit at 24. Now you can see to the west there's still some warmth, and so we're likely going to have that temperature coming back up again, but getting a little relief from the humidity. There's a cold front going through, and that's been giving us this extra cloud cover. The active weather either to the south of us or way off towards eastern Ontario. So for tonight, we'll actually have some clouds early, then clearing with a low of 17. 29 tomorrow, feeling like 34. Still not like the weekend.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks so much, Colette.
You're welcome.
Up next, a heartwarming story that proves friendships forged on the playground can last a lifetime. CBC's Jennifer LaGrassa has more.
Hey, again. These are the grade 8 girls. They've been out of elementary school for decades now, but it's at Princess Elizabeth Public School in Riverside where their friendship first began and how their group name came to be.
We went through every grade together to grade 8, and we all graduated grade 8 together and have the picture to prove it with all the fancy gowns.
And this is that photo from 1957. In the group is Kay Stazecki, Rhoda Young, Jane Jones, Ellen Monker, Joyce Harkness, Joyce Amiot, Bonnie Atkins, Judith Galinas, and then Nyla Monk, who wasn't at the most recent gathering. Childhood friendships are hard to keep, so like many others, this group has had their ups and downs.
Over the years, we lost touch. We'd bump into each other at the grocery store, at the church, or whatever, and say, you know, we must get together.
And finally, once life settled down and their kids were grown, about 20 years ago, they all started hanging out again.
Not sure who initiated it. Maybe none of us, maybe all of us. But it's a good thing.
These kids are all nice people. Like whenever I'm with them, it just brings back the memories, and I feel like I'm back there and not my age.
What's a fun memory for you? What's one that you remember that comes to mind often?
The parties.
Ooh, tell me more.
We had parties.
And the boyfriends.
And the boyfriends. Yeah, the boyfriends.
When you have friends that go back as long as we do, that it's just something very special.
We grew up in a different time too, and we didn't have phones and stuff like that, so we were at each other's homes and we did a lot of things like that together.
But their friendship isn't only about looking back. Now, in their early 80s, it gives them something to look forward to.
At this point in our life, I think it's important to have friends and people that can stand by you no matter what. I tend to sit in the house and think, okay, I don't want to go out today. I don't have to go out today. I don't have to talk to anybody today. But then you have an appointment. Then you have a commitment to other people.
What do you think is the secret, if there was one, to having like long-lasting friendships with people?
I think the secret, it partly is perseverance, because I think you lose track of each other, and you got to have one key person that keeps saying, you know, we got to get together and make a date and plan it. Sometimes you think, oh, I haven't heard from that person in years. They might not want to hear from me. It's amazing how receptive people are to that and love to talk about the old days.
Jennifer LaGrassa, CBC News, Windsor.
In other news, Doug Ford is in Alberta today meeting with Premier Danielle Smith. The leaders announcing they have signed a new agreement to cooperate on the development of energy and resource projects. As part of the deal, building a railway to the Ring of Fire region.
New rail lines would connect Ontario's Ring of Fire region, critical mineral mining projects, and processing facility to Western Canadian ports as we build an end-to-end critical mineral supply chain. This is how we diversify our trading partners. This is how we make ourselves less reliant on the United States.
The agreement is also expected to see the creation of new pipelines to connect oil and gas from Western Canada to refineries in Ontario. Ford recently passed legislation in an effort to speed up the construction of a mine in the Ring of Fire by creating special economic zones. This would allow for the suspension of provincial and municipal laws for certain projects. The new law has received pushback from First Nations who say it tramples on their rights. A new joint campaign by Ontario's police associations hopes to recruit more officers to address staffing shortages. It also seeks to modernize recruitment by attracting a diverse pool of candidates. But as the CBC's Michelle Song tells us, some experts say it's an opportunity to also rethink how public safety works.
Policing isn't just a job.
Ontario's police associations are sending a message. They need more officers. This promotional video is part of a newly launched marketing campaign to attract more recruits.
Answer the call.
If we don't become proactive and strategic in how we recruit people to this profession, then we will be at a crisis point.
Police.
Ontario's police leadership says this initiative is the first of its kind, hoping to attract more talent to more than 50 services across the province. They say the campaign will help future-proof its forces from staffing shortages, especially those in rural and remote communities.
When we have shortages, it affects everything within the organization, from response times to the community. It increases workload on members, often having to stay later at the end of their shift to cover off so that the needs of the community continue to be met.
According to Statistics Canada, in 2023, police strength in the country dipped down to 178 officers per 100,000 people, the lowest rate it's seen in more than 50 years. But in the same year, Canada also experienced a major population spike.
We need to be representative of the diversity of our province, and that's a huge part of where we need to go and how we reform and modernize recruitment strategies.
More police officers doesn't necessarily guarantee more safety.
But this sociology professor says it's also necessary for communities to look at what issues are really driving crime and whether police are the answer to curbing that crime.
Perhaps, sometimes the question is actually about how we use police, how we deploy police, how police exist alongside other services that might be doing a better job or a more effective job at lowering crime rates.
Ontario's police leadership says this campaign is about building the next generation of police and finding the right kind of people to serve and reflect the communities they work in. Michelle Song, CBC News, Toronto.
Workers for Canadian Hearing Services are voting on whether or not to head back to work. Workers in Windsor have been part of the province-wide strike since the end of April. A tentative agreement has now been reached between the union and CHS. Workers are voting whether or not to ratify that agreement today. Local 2073 of the Canadian Union of Public Employees represents approximately 200 workers across 18 communities in Ontario. The union says if approved, employees could be back on the job on July 14th. Meanwhile, workers with the Worker Safety Insurance Board, WSIB, returned to work today after ratifying a new agreement over the weekend. About 3,600 members of the Ontario Compensation Employees Union had been off the job for 6 weeks, including here in Windsor. They had been seeking increased wages and improvements to working conditions. The WSIB provides workplace injury and illness insurance to more than 5.3 million people in more than 300,000 Ontario workplaces. Chatham-Kent police say a woman has died after a collision Sunday near Ridgetown. Police responded to a serious two-vehicle collision just after 3 o'clock. The 80-year-old driver from Newbury sustained life-threatening injuries. She was taken to a hospital in Newbury where she later died. The 64-year-old driver of one vehicle and 3 younger passengers were all taken to hospital with minor injuries. An investigation is ongoing. And 2 beer store locations in Windsor have officially closed their doors for good this weekend. One of the locations is at Goyo and Elliott. The other is at College and Campbell. They are among dozens in the province closing this year. The company says the closures are a part of modernizing its operations. It also comes following the provincial government's move last year, allowing alcohol sales in convenience stores. The other 4 locations in Windsor will remain open. In national news, Manitoba officials provided an update on wildfires that have forced about 6,600 residents out of their homes. There are more than 80 active fires across the province, many sparked by recent lightning strikes.
When lightning strikes, it can take 3 to 5 days, sometimes even longer, for that smoke to pop up. So that's what we're dealing with now, is a lot of starts from lightning and more forecasted on the horizon, unfortunately.
Residents of the town of Leaf Rapids have been given 24 hours to leave their community. Manitoba's largest northern city of Thompson is the latest to declare a state of emergency due to a nearby fire. This year has already seen a total of 235 fires, far above the 30-year average of 187. The provincial government is helping to secure shelter for evacuees. Additional fire crews arrived in Winnipeg to help put out the flames. And before break, we're going to shift gears now to a record-breaking moment in the music world. 1,353 people braved the rain in Germany to form the world's largest string orchestra. Musicians of all ages gathered to play in a town hall square in this West German city, and the previous record was set in Hong Kong in 2018. This gathering beat that record by more than 300. We'll be right back after the break. Welcome back. French President Emmanuel Macron is expected to be in the UK for a state visit this week. The two leaders will announce plans to curb the growing number of migrants illegally crossing the English Channel. Briar Stewart is in London with more.
In the shallows off the coast of northern France, migrants tried to cram onto a dinghy, watching what has become a routine and risky voyage. French officers and a team from BBC News. As it becomes overloaded and some, including a small child, are crowded near the propeller, officers move into the water. One pulls out a knife, slashing the boat. Migrant advocates say this routinely happens, but not on camera.
It's not really a surprise to see those kind of pictures and video just a few days before a meeting between France and UK.
France has been under pressure to do more to stop the migrants from crossing into the UK. As part of a 3-year deal, the UK gave France more than $800 million to step up security. Prime Minister Keir Starmer has repeatedly talked tough about stopping the crossings.
We've got to have a concerted effort to smash the gangs that are running this vile trade.
But in the past 6 months, UK government figures show around 20,000 migrants arrived by boat, a figure that's up 50% over the same period last year. In the last week alone, more than 2,000 crossed the channel in boats. Currently, French officers will only wade into the water to intercept the migrants if there's a danger to life. But France is considering allowing officers to go further from shore.
The reason that they've considered this change in maritime doctrine is because of this increasing use of taxi boats that are setting off further down the shore and loitering in shallow waters.
What to do about the channel crossings is expected to be a big part of the conversation this week during a state visit, which will see France's president meet with both the UK government and members of the royal family. Briar Stewart, CBC News, London.
Nearly 90 people are dead after floods have swept central Texas. Many are still missing, and some of the bodies that were found remain unidentified. CBC's Sam Sampson brings us more.
Search and rescue efforts continue in central Texas, on land, in the water, and in the air. This massive operation includes hundreds, all trying to find missing people, including a group of girls from a nearby summer camp decimated by the flood.
I need to tell my community and those families who are waiting, this will be a rough week.
Early Friday morning, the Guadalupe River rose fast, violently ripping away everything and everyone in its path.
The force of that water was so insane. Nobody could get into it. My resident, that was the one that called 911, he was trying to get to the family and all the way to water, all the way to his waist, and debris hitting him, and he was yelling, "Please throw me your baby," and they couldn't, and they got swept away.
This crisis is taking a toll on Texans and the country.
Texas is grieving right now. The pain, the shock of what has transpired these last few days has broken the heart of our state.
Officials are asking search and rescue volunteers to register with the local Salvation Army. That way, their whereabouts will be known if the weather turns again. Still, volunteers pour in to help find survivors or bodies.
We don't know what we're going to find, if we're going to find anything, but at least the fact that we can find closure for each and every individual and family member, especially for the children that were lost at the camps and are still missing. I figured I could be doing my part just as much as these first responders and active personnel are doing.
This crisis is raising questions on a national level. If U.S. President Donald Trump's cuts to national weather agencies hindered Texans from getting speedy, urgent warnings. Trump's administration cut hundreds of jobs, including scientists and meteorologists, earlier this year. The president says he does not believe that decision affected this tragedy. He agreed to send federal help to the region for recovery and possibly to deal with more heavy rain in the coming days. Sam Sampson, CBC News, Washington.
Colette will join us after the break. Stay with us. Colette Kennedy is back now for more on weather. Colette, before the break, we shared with our viewers a story out of Texas, that horrible tragedy with those awful floods. And I know that you've been tracking the conditions now. So what's the very latest?
Yeah, just kind of looking at how things have been today, because there was still the threat today and the water level came up a little bit because of some of the activity in the area and now should be subsiding. But you can see here's Kerrville here and just a little bit towards the northwest and now west, still some active weather there. But in terms of what they're seeing, the flash flood warnings associated with that, and then still a large area with at least flood advisories. But in general, it does seem as though now over the next few days there's some sporadic activity with some rainfall, but it should allow not enough so that it should allow these water levels to continue to not only be down but to actually stay down. And then you come up towards our neck of the woods where we could actually use a little more moisture, but with the frontal boundary that's going through right now, mostly it's kind of going around and we're getting the cloud cover. It certainly has made today a departure from yesterday with cooler readings, a little more comfortable too. We didn't have to deal with the humidex values up at 40 like on Sunday. Right now it's at 29 for Windsor, Sarnia, only at 22. As that front has been passing, there has been some active weather along it. It's south of Lake Erie in this case, and then in Ontario, it was into eastern Ontario. Even that is subsiding. But there were even a few tornado warnings earlier in the day. But again, this was over into eastern Ontario. So we'll deal with some cloud cover. We're not really looking at the rainfall in this case, but we'll have a chance as we get not so much into Tuesday, into Wednesday, of getting some wet weather coming through. But otherwise, our weather essentially for tomorrow is right back there to the west, and it's looking pretty good. So through tonight, we'll have cloud cover early like we've got, but then we'll get that clearing out, a nice setup for Tuesday. And then as we head into Wednesday and this next system comes in here, heavier rains earlier in the day to the north. If you're doing any traveling up here towards Grand Bend or pushing up towards the Bruce Peninsula, you might encounter it. But otherwise, it's not till we get to the afternoon and evening hours that we get more of a chance into southwestern Ontario of a few scattered showers or thunderstorms bubbling up. So it'll be highly localized. Temperature coming down overnight tonight, more comfortable, not quite the mid-teens, but almost. But then tomorrow up to 29. And then the next few days, we will get that humidity going back up and obviously the temperature, but we've got a couple of days where it is slightly more comfortable before those humidex values really start to climb.
I'm sure folks are happy to hear that. Thank you so much, Colette. Thanks everyone for watching. We will see you tomorrow.
Good night.